continue.
Hi, I'm talking to Paige Nick this evening on the WriteOnline Hangout. And Paige has kind of been on my radar for a number of months, and I thought it was about time that I actually nailed her. She's started off in advertising, and then some 11 years ago, published her first novel. Then after that, there was just a succession of books that came out for the next 7 or 8 years. And we're in a bit of a hiatus at the moment, which I'm sure Paige will tell us about as we go on. But Paige, the other thing is Paige runs a Facebook page called the Good Book Appreciation Society. There's something like 15,000 readers on this page. I don't know how she manages it, because it seems to me that it's a full-time job apart from anything else. But she does, it's wonderfully entertaining. If you want to belong to a book club, that's the Facebook page to join. Paige, hi.
Hi, that was so nice.
Let's get back to, let's get back to the advertising. That was what you started. That was the start of your career. But it seems to me that it must have gone on for some time before your first book came out. Now, when did you actually start writing your first book? And I think you may as well tell us, how old were you when you started, not published, started?
Well, you've asked me a maths question first. I feel like I'm in the wrong place.
Okay. We're all fascinated by figures.
Okay, well, I've always had a pretty bad figure, but let me try. So I'm still in advertising, actually, and I've been doing that since I was, I think, 18. Or 19. So I left school, went overseas for a year. I was very fortunate, came back, did AAA for a year, dropped. Oh, then I did a school VAC job at what was then Hunt Lascaris in Cape Town. And they offered me a job at the end of the VAC job. So I dropped out of college and I took the job. I kind of always knew I wanted to be in advertising. I was very lucky that I had a rudder, I had a compass so soon. And I kind of, writing was the only thing that I could really imagine that I could do in advertising. So then, so that must have been 1994 that I got, yes, because I worked on the first elections, actually. We worked on the ANC campaign for the first elections. Well, I say we, I was so green. I was really running up coffees and putting out people's cigarettes. So I started advertising in 1994. And then I just really was enjoying writing so much. I always enjoyed it. It felt the persona worked for me. I just liked everything about it. And then I remember at some point I started thinking, oh, maybe I should write a novel. Such a cliche in advertising, copywriter writing. Maybe I want to write a novel. And then I realized by around about 2009, I realized that my New Year's resolution every year for about 5 years had been, this year I'm going to lose 10 kilos and I'm going to write a novel. And I never did either of those things. I just kept, every year it was the same resolution. And then in 2009, I thought, this is ridiculous. I'm never going to lose the 10 kilos, but let me try and do the book. That seems a little more achievable than the other thing. And so I took a week off work and I did a writing course with Sarah Bullen, who still actually does fantastic writing courses. If anyone out there is looking for a good writing course, there are a few, but hers is excellent. So I did a writing course, and I berated myself about doing the writing course because I thought, well, either you're a writer or you're not. You write for a living. I write ads for a living. Just write the damn book. But I only ever got 5 pages in. I started book after book after book, and I never got very far. And then I kind of thought, well, I know how to write ads. People have taught me how to do that, but nobody's taught me how to write books. So I kind of said to myself, well, now I'm going to do a course and I'm going to learn how to write a book and see if I can do it. So I did the Sarah Bullen course. I think, Mike, yours wasn't around back then. And
don't worry, I won't mark you down on this.
And so I did Sarah's course and I was so inspired by it. I literally and I had an idea for a book. And when I went in on the first day, she said, who's got an idea for a book? And I shot my hand up and I told her the idea and she was like, okay. And I was like, no, let me tell you again. And I told her the idea again and she was, oh, and I said, no, you don't understand. Let me tell you. She goes, right, for the next exercise, throw that idea out the door. We did all these writing exercises, throw that idea out the window and just do something completely different. And that exercise that I did after that became my manuscript for my first novel. And I wrote it in a month. I couldn't stop. I was completely obsessed.
This is gobsmacking. How many words was that?
I mean, it was 80 or 90,000 words.
Jesus Christ. Did you sleep at all? Did you sleep?
No, I was really obsessed with it. It was almost like once I turned the tap on and she said to me, throw that idea out the window, and then I had another idea. I knew exactly what it was. I mean, it helped that they say first novels are often autobiographical. It helped that it was set in advertising. It was very much in the world that I was in. And I would just write in every spare second. I remember sitting at my desk, and at a lull between jobs, I would dash out, 200. They were terrible words, but my first draft was horrific, but I got it out. And I guess that's what you have to do with a first draft. You have to just get it out of you.
And then what happened? Okay, you've got the first draft. Then what did you do?
Well, then I started looking for an agent or a publisher or somebody. So Ron Irwin, who was an agent at the time, and he now runs at UCT, he heads up the multimedia course. He's an amazing man. And I called him and I emailed him and I begged him, and he said, no, he's not taking on any new clients. And then he said, I just nagged him. I really was a pain in the ass. And then he said, I tell you what, I need a new bathtub. I'm renovating my house and I need a new bathtub. If you buy me a bathtub, I will read and evaluate your manuscript. So I said, done. So I bought him a bathtub, and then he read and evaluated, and he gave me back, I wish I had a picture of it. And this was 2009, and he gave me back the manuscript. I don't think there was a page without a sticky and like 40 red circles. And that was like November. And I decided I was going to spend my Christmas holiday and make every single change he suggested. Like I wasn't, even if I disagreed with it, no matter what, I was going to do absolutely everything that he suggested. And I'm in advertising, so I'm actually used to being sent back and told to do something again. And I made every change that he suggested, which was very vast. And then I sent it back to him. And I think he was quite shocked. I think he didn't think that I was going to make every change he suggested, and that I might just fall by the wayside and go like, I'm not doing this. And then,
what did he want this time? A shower?
Right, exactly. And then he was kind enough, he put me in touch with, because he was an agent, he put me in touch with a couple of different publishers, and Penguin, actually, I think the second letter I got back, the first letter was from Wajaji Books was a hard no. And then the second one was from Penguin, and they were keen to publish it with a lot of it still needed a lot of editing after that.
But okay, so you work very hard at these things, but the amount of time between getting the yes, we'll publish, and actually publishing it couldn't have been very long. I mean, just looking at it, came out in 2011, right?
No, it came out in 2010. So you're right. It came out in time for the Franschhoek Literary Festival. So it must have been May-ish, April, May was when it came out. So you're right. It was a very short lead time from picking it up to publishing it. Which is maybe why there was which is maybe why there was a typo on the first page. But
that's just awful, of course. But anyway, I mean, it's a measure of their value of the book that they did it that quickly.
I mean, it was a slightly different time in publishing then. I mean, they did a lot of things very differently. The books would come out in trade paperback, the very big paperback, hardcover, big paperback, then small. So publishing was quite different to what it is now. So I think in parts I was quite lucky as well. And I don't know that there were that many people writing in that genre at the time. So, I think I got lucky. I worked hard and I got lucky, I guess. I think.
Right. All right. So you were propelled right into this writing life, and suddenly the Franschhoek Literary Festival happens and you've got to be a writer. Now, you'd not been a writer, you'd been an advertising copywriter. What was it like suddenly having to be on the stage?
Well, actually, it's funny you should say that. So they invited me to be in the Literary Festival in February, and the topic of it was like being a novelist. And I was so I thought, that's crazy. I'm not a novelist. I just wrote some stuff that kind of happened to me and managed to do a course that showed me how to pull it all together into a novel. I better write another novel quickly so that I can prove to myself that I actually can be a novelist. And then I can go to Franschhoek and not feel like such a fraud. I can only feel like half a fraud, not a full fraud. So then I've like frantically wrote my second novel, kind of as some kind of, to prove to myself some kind of thing. So yeah, that's how it felt. It felt daunting to be called something that I didn't feel that I was yet. I felt like a writer. I've always felt like a writer, but feeling like a novelist is somehow imbued with a lot more feelings of like fraud and, you know.
Well, Sally Partridge on the Hangout last month, she said that we're all imposters, and I tend to think that she's probably right.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. I need a writer in my life, not fraud, imposter.
So you went to Franschhoek Literary Festival. How far was the second book? This Way Up, right?
Yeah, This Way Up. I think it was quite far by then, because that came out in 2011. That came out, I think, the next year.
And you're still with Penguin at that point?
Still with Penguin at that point, yeah.
All right. And did This Way Up, did it happen as quickly as the first draft? I mean, were you so obsessed with it?
Yes, it did. And then this one's a bit more about my family life. So, I mean, it's a complete novel. It's completely fiction, but it's about a family with lots of sisters, and I come from a family with lots of sisters. And so I was still drawing on my life a little bit to kind of find the content. And I think that's why those fell out so easily. It does feel to me like, in comparison to some of the other books that I've written, those two do feel like they kind of fell out of me.
Okay, so they were still, so in that sense, they were fairly close to your life, although not about your life.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. All right. But at the same time, you were about to be picked up by the Sunday Times to write a column for them. Did that happen round about then too?
Yes, actually, at that Franschhoek Literary Festival in 2010, in the audience was Mike Robertson, who was the either the MD or the CEO of Sunday Times at the time. And they had been talking about getting a female columnist, a humor writer, and he'd seen me speak. And then they emailed me the next week, I couldn't believe it, to say, would I be interested in a column in the Sunday Times? And I was like, Jesus, where do I sign? Sign me up, I'm in. And then I like freaked the hell out. A long time after that, that was a hell of a gig. So yeah, that happened, actually, it all happened right there. Everything felt like it happened in a...
But that must have all been amazing. I mean, you must have felt really good.
Well, no, I was terrified. There's this thing like that you, now when I look back on it, I'm like, yo, that's amazing. But at the time, you've got to show up. You've got to do the things. You've got to write the books, and you've got to be on the panels, and you've got to write the columns. So I think the thought of that's amazing is kind of overshadowed by, okay, put that to the side, actually go and write something and prove that you can do this thing you've been asked to do.
Which you then promptly went and did.
Oh, I love that column. I really loved writing that. That was.
But you started to fashion an entire genre for yourself of this satire, comedy, and then the columns that you picked up.
You can only write what comes into your head, Actually, you know what I forgot? Ron, when he first read my manuscript, he said to me, you know what you need a blog. This was back when blogging was like the thing. He said, no publisher is going to look at you without a blog. I said, Ron, I've got nothing to write. I don't know what I would write about. I've got nothing to say. I don't want to blog. I'm not a blog writer. And he said, well, you got to have a profile. You got to have a blog. And then I started my blog, which was called A Million Miles from Normal. That must have been also early 2010. And I would just blog every day about crazy shit and sex and whatever deranged, weird shit that I could find anywhere. And I would post every morning. And then that was also one of the reasons that they gave me the column, was that they went and they'd seen that I could write on the blog. He'd been in the Franschhoek Literary Festival panel and seen that. And so out of that came the column from the blog as well.
And during all this, you're still working in an advertising agency?
Yes, and I was full-time. I was at King James. I remember one of the stories in A Million Miles from Normal was something that happened at King James. I wasn't the copywriter, fortunately, but one of the copywriters, they didn't copy check properly, and we did a Vintook promotion, and on the can, they put the phone number for the promotion, and one of the copywriters wrote 082 1234567 as like a sample phone number, and they went to print with 1 million cans. And it turned out that phone number belonged to a Chinese businessman in South Africa, who then wanted an awful lot of money to sell his phone number to the promotion. They couldn't recall the beer cans, they needed to buy the thing. So the agency had to foot this bill, which was enormous, 6 figures, huge. And so I'd written about it in my manuscript, in A Million Miles from Normal. It was something similar had happened to her. And I remember walking into my boss's office. Alistair King was my creative director, with the manuscript printed out, and saying, oh, I need to talk to you about something. I've written this book, but it's got a story about the agency in it, and I hope you're okay. And then I dropped it on his desk and I ran out of his office, and I hid for the rest of the afternoon. I don't think he read it, but afterwards he said to me, it's fine, publish what you want. I think who's going to read it anyway? So yeah, I was still in advertising, but you know what I always said was like, so I had the column and I was writing the books and I was in advertising. I was fueled. I mean, I had no life. I was dating a lot, but mostly I called it sport dating. It was for column content. I was basically trying to find the most inappropriate people I could date so that I could write about them. I mean, really, I'm a terrible person. I think just doing all that work made me do more work. Like you get into this, it was just like a daily flow of doing it.
And so you were just continuing to write fiction at the same time now. And I mean, what was interesting to me is that at about this time, crime fiction in the country is all the rage. And what does Paige Nick decide to do but to go and subvert it all with Death by Carbs?
Yeah. Death by Carbs was kind of an accident. It kind of happened by accident. I was joking with somebody. That was when the Tim Noakes, everyone was banting.
Yeah.
And
who features in the book.
Right. You couldn't go anywhere without people talking about Tim Noakes and being on either side of it. People who absolutely loved it and swore by it, and people who absolutely hated it. And I made a joke at a dinner party to someone. I said, somebody could kill Tim Noakes, but there would be so many suspects, they would never be able to find who did it. There's just so many people lined up to kill him. And then I kind of thought, whoa, that would be a really cool book. So then I wrote Death by Carbs. Also, I just wrote it. That was kind of my thing at the time. I just wrote them as fast as I could because I was worried that if I stopped, I wouldn't finish it or something. So I would tee myself up that the next month of my life is closed. There will be nothing. And then plot it, and then I just write it. In fact, by then I would take 3 weeks off work and go travel somewhere, lock myself away. Death by Carbs I wrote in Ireland with Sarah Lotz and Helen Moffat. We got a house in the middle of literally nowhere, and we were working on our project. In fact, I have a feeling that was where Helen Moffat dreamt up Charlotte. I think it was that trip. We would write all day, each go off to our rooms and write all day, and then hang out and talk shit in the evenings. So yeah, so that was Death by Carbs.
And how long was that then? I mean, how long did that take?
That's a bit of a novella, so it wasn't as long. I think it was only 50,000 words, so it wasn't as long as a big novel. That was also about a month. I'm talking first draft. I'm not talking many rewrites. I just mean I don't read back. I sit down and I write from word 1 to the end without looking up as much as possible.
But Jesus, Paige, that's about 2,000 words a day.
Yeah, that's about 2,000 words. But I wasn't doing anything else. I'd get up, go for a run, come home, and then write all day. I wasn't doing anything else. You've got to kind of limit what else is in your life so that you can make the space for me, that's my process, is to limit everything else and just.
But how do you sit still for 2,000 words?
I'm in advertising. It's I think I'm conditioned. I think I'm like a hamster on a wheel, or some one of those factory workers who are tortured in the factory and pee in a bottle. Sometimes it's a bit like that. But it's so obsessed. like I can't hear other voices in my head. It's just the characters. Once the characters, I mean, you'll know this from your, how many books have you written? 200,000, 27, 52.
I'm not going to admit to anything.
Come on. You know how that goes. You get the voices in your head and then they're constantly having conversations and arguments, and you just have to scoop up what they're saying and write it down. Otherwise they move on to the next conversation. So I get very voice in my heady.
So is that how these books start? Voices in your head? I mean, is that where the idea starts to generate?
No, I think the idea comes first. For all of them, the idea has come first. And then I plotted it. But I'm a plotter. I mean, there's not a right or wrong way, as you know. So I plotted, I use index cards, I stick them on a wall, and I plotted, and then I burn through it, and I just burn through.
So how long does the plotting stage take?
Oh, that depends on the book. That depends. Death by Carbs was relatively quick because it's almost like a play. It's quite a simple structure. Tim Noakes gets killed on the first page, and there's a detective, and he has to try to figure out who did it. Basically, is the log line. So it's quite structured. You only have X amount of characters, and then a cut between their POVs and the detective trying to figure out who it was who did it. So that plotting was quite quick, maybe a couple, I can't really remember, a couple of weeks probably of plotting. And I didn't have to research that much because I was banting, and so I was on the forums and I was part of those chats. So, and same for A Million Miles from Normal, I lived in advertising, so I knew my space. And then same for This Way Up, it was about this family. So it was only the books after that needed a lot more research.
Okay. And
once I ran out of my own life as material, I had to start researching.
and as far as the characters are concerned, I mean, do you have to write up sketches for them? Do you produce character Bibles?
Yes, not as structured as character Bibles. I use my Post-it notes, and then I can write up stuff. And that for me is a lot in the thinking. So, and I know I've got it when they start talking to each other. Then I know who they are. And they're very mean, those characters. They don't do it until you're ready. They won't let you they won't talk until they're ready for you to talk. They're real assholes like that. They're very, they wait for you to do your work and be ready before they chatter. So yeah, I have to do the character work. I'm lucky to have Sarah Lotz as a friend, and Helen as well, Helen Moffat, and we talk about the stuff a lot. So often talking about writing is a very solitary thing, but to have people that you trust in a writing circle that you can bat around ideas with is worth gold. And they're my people.
Now, the voices that you hear, is it a matter of you sitting down and transcribing what they say to one another? Is that how it works?
Yes, pretty much. So like snatches of dialogue, I run or swim, and I find that uninterrupted, no phone period of flow, like when you're running or swimming, that's when they talk. So it'll be a snatch of dialogue that'll get me started. As soon as I get home, I literally sit down and write down remember what they said, write it down, and that'll launch me into being able to write the rest of it. Then it builds off of that. Okay.
Do you have notebooks, or do you write onto your phone, or?
Notebook, or whatever's nearby. I have a rule in my house that anyone's in my home, you're not allowed to throw away any piece of paper you find, no matter how shabby it looks. So everywhere is just like ugly scraps of whatever I've found anywhere that just have random notes that mean nothing a week later. If I don't, I'll come to a note like that I've written in the middle of the night in the dark, and I haven't it's lost. It's like lost to me. I don't know if it's an ad or a book, or I don't know what it is.
The world of Paige Nick. And what do you work on? Is it a laptop? Yeah.
Laptop. The laptop I'm talking to you on.
Okay, and do you have a writing program that you use?
No, I use Word. I did try a few of the different writing programs, but I'm so comfortable in Word. It's what I use for advertising as well. So yeah, I write in Word, and I have the index cards that are just scribbled messes.
When you get to the end of the first draft and you start revising, do you then just delete material in the original document?
Yes, and Helen Moffat helps with that too. She helps tell me what to delete. She's an amazing editor. Very fortunate to have an editor for a friend, you know, as well.
So you go straight into, and with an editor,
No.
into the second draft?
No, I have to sit on my hands for a little bit. I have to walk away for a bit from it, so that it's a bit more foreign to me. And then when I come back, I can see some things. And it's incredible how much you learn with each novel, how to edit. So I was so clueless with my first book. I mean, I can't believe how clueless I was. I remember I met with Alison Lowry, was my editor for that first novel, A Million Miles from Normal, and I met her. There was a cafe in town called Starlings. I was so nervous. And it was my first meeting with her. And again, she had my manuscript on the table with just 1,000 stickies in it. It was like destroyed with red pen and stickies. And I sat down to have a drink with her, and I was really nervous. I know I'd gotten myself into such a state over it. And she showed me that I'd used the word aggravated. Either aggravated or irritated. I think I'd used it something like 192 times in the whole manuscript, and 98% of them I'd used it incorrectly. I'd learned things all the way along. So yeah, so I sit on my hands for a little bit until it's not so, and I also send it off to Sarah and Helen, let them read it, and then write me back a kind email to tell me that it's going to be all right. And then I start with an edit.
All right, and what is the sitting on your hands that little while? How long is that little while?
Oh, how long is a piece of string? Depends. It depends. It depends if there's a publisher waiting for the book. Depends what Sarah and Helen, how bad the email back is from Sarah and Helen, like how much work this is going to need. It depends. Is my connection unstable, or are we all right? No, we're all right.
No, we're okay. All right, so we've got up to there. Now, you... these are all your standalone books that you've written yourself. There's some others that come after that, Dutch Courage and Unprecedented. Is there another one that you're working on now?
I'm not working on a novel at the moment. I feel like I'm taking a book sabbatical. For some reason, I just haven't felt... I think it's a mix of book sales are really but soul destroying. And I also feel like I don't know that my voice is so relevant anymore. I don't know that South Africa needs more from me book-wise right now. I think people need to be reading other things. And I'm not sure what I want to write about next. I've kind of written myself into a corner. So like I did 2 chiclets, a book of columns, then 2 spoofs and a novel. And now I don't know. So I'm not really busy with a book. I'm trying to write I'm trying to write a series. I'm enjoying the new learnings of a new kind of formula and a new technique. I like to kind of try and write new things. So yeah, so I'm not, to answer your very short question in a very long answer, sorry. Not really a soundbite, is it? No, I'm not working on a book right now.
but the issue is that you are writing, so there is still a compulsion to write.
Oh yeah, all day, every day. Yeah, I'm still in advertising, and that's gangbusters right now. We're crazy busy. I don't know, the world's gone mad, as we know. So yeah, no, I write all day, every day, and I'm reading a lot, but I'm not bitten by a fiction idea yet. I think the idea bites me, and then until I write it, it won't let me go. And I haven't been bitten by that. I've had a few little nibbles more recently, but I think I'm just thinking about it or something.
Because, it's now 5 years.
I mean, so I could have written another 9 if I'd...
Exactly.
Right?
All right. So now, then there's this other interesting side to Paige Nick, and that is when she gets together with Sarah Lotz and Helen Moffat and produces 3 books out of the blue. Boom. Okay, so you're sitting in this house in Ireland somewhere, and is that where they started?
No, they started, Sarah sold The 3, which was her novel back when. She did a huge deal. It was one of the very first early deals where South African writers went international with a really big deal. And we had talked about going for lunch. Helen and I wanted to take, or I wanted to take her for lunch to congratulate her. She had been she'd been in one of my launches, and she'd been so stunning. I'd kind of made friends with her through that. And I said, can I take you for lunch to celebrate this incredible deal? And she said, yes. Can Helen, my editor, Helen, can she come with? So we went to the food barn in Noordhoek, and we had this big boozy lunch. And somewhere along the way, Sarah said, we should, you know what we should do? We should write, remember those choose your own adventure kids from when you were, books from when you were a kid, you know, when you go to space, if you wear the oxygen mask, turn to this page, if you jump onto the moon, turn to that page. She said, we should write a choose your own adventure, but with sex. So like a pornographic choose your own adventure. And we howled. I mean, we were quite drunk, but we howled with laughter. And then we decided to plot it. We're like, we should write it together. And then over this lunch, we plotted it. We decided a girl walks into a bar and she's got all these men to choose from. And if you decide to go home with the rock star, you turn to page 69 for want of any other number. And if you choose to go home with the barman or the businessman, you turn to this page. And then they're very silly. So then we went back to Sarah's house for a sobering coffee before I drove home from Noordhoek. And we carried on talking about it basically the whole day. And then I was driving home from Noordhoek. I had like a 40-minute drive, and it started coming to me what that first chapter should be. And when I got home, I dumped my bags, literally went to my computer, and I wrote like into the night. And then the next morning, I sent them, I don't know, 2,000 or 3,000 words. I sent them a silly email. I was like, okay, guys, this is probably terrible. And I don't know, but I don't know where I would go, where it would go from here. But here, just take it and don't judge me. And here's some stuff. And then Helen wrote back. She was like, oh, I like this. I know what to do next. And then she kind of wrote the next little bit and she sent it back to us. And then I was like, okay, now I know what to do next. And then Sarah was like, oh, I want to write the car mechanic part. And we kind of all had bits that we, like Helen wanted to write about the priest, and I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to write the rock star. And then, so then we pulled out, I think we did maybe 20,000 words, and like that, just back and forth, really silly. I mean, very, very silly, porny, sexy nonsense. And then Sarah phoned Ollie, her agent in London, and said, you know, we've got this idea. And she said there was a pause. There was a very long pause when she told him the idea. And then he was like, oh, you got to do it. Send it to me. And then he pitched it, and it went into this crazy bidding war. And we ended up getting, I think it was published in like 21 countries around the world. Suddenly we were getting these emails. They were like, well, South America want it, and all these places want it. And then that was that must have been like 2013, and then we had to write all three of them. A girl walks into a bar, a girl walks into a blind date, and a girl walks into a wedding. We had a year to write and publish all three. So I quit my job in advertising, because at that point I realized I couldn't do a column, write 3 books, and have a full-time job in advertising and still be alive at the end of it. So I quit my job to go freelance. And we wrote those books, and they're ridiculous. They're absolutely ridiculous, but really fun.
But I assume that you must have made some money out of them.
Yeah, that was the deal of a lifetime. That's the deal that writers dream of, and it's a unicorn. I doubt I would be very fortunate if I saw something like that in my life. It was just the perfect confluence of brilliant idea. The 3 of us were the right people to work together. It was just good timing. It was very lucky. I
know I had a discussion with Sarah about those 3 books, and she said to me she was very pleased that you were there to write all the sex scenes. Why is that?
Sarah won't write a sex scene. She's great. Sarah was like the mayoress of the project, because, I mean, 3 people, to work in a group, it's quite difficult because everyone's got a different opinion. And so we had a couple of rules: no sulking, majority wins. So 2 against 1 wins, and no sulking. And Sarah was kind of the mayoress. She was the glue who kind of held the whole thing together. But she won't write a sex scene. So she would write everything on either side of it, and then she would put gross, sexy, gross stuff goes in here. And then she'd send it to me, and Helen and I would split her sex scenes. Helen would say, I'll do this one. I go, I'll do this one. And then we would write like the gross sex scenes, like blowjobs or whatever we needed to write, and then send them back. She wouldn't write the sex scenes. She's very funny like that. I mean, she could write the hell out of them. She just doesn't want to.
Yeah.
She was great. And Helen was also amazing. And we each, we talked about a lot. We didn't want, Helen's an amazing editor. And what she managed to do was, it's quite seamless. I don't think if you read them, you could guess who wrote which sex scene. Because we were always like, if people know that I wrote this sex scene, then they're going to think that's how I have sex. I don't want people to think that. So, but it was, I think, edited quite seamlessly so that hopefully you don't know who kind of showed their knickers where.
And did you have to cut back on the sex? I mean, did you have to censor yourselves at any point?
No, absolutely not. In fact, I think at some point they asked us for more sex. No, there was that was the point. You know, this was on the back of the, 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
That was actually what got the conversation started when we were at that lunch. You know, we were talking about this phenomenon of this people wanting sex, women wanting to read sex. And we were like, that sex is so out of your control, out of her control. She was being domineered. We wanted to write sex that's in your control. So what better way to do it than if you want him to wee on you, turn to page 5. If you don't want him to wee on you in the shower, turn to page 9. So you ultimately, the reader gets full control over the sex that they want to have. So that was where we'd come from to the idea. And maybe that's why we got such a big deal. Well, all the deals came in as well, because everyone was looking at how much money 50 Shades of Grey was making, and all the publishers were trying to cash in on what was hot at the time. So the timing was...
And that was why you had to do it all so quickly.
I think so. And also because they're silly little books and they wanted them to come out, you know, bring one out, bring out the next one, bring out the next one in very quick succession.
Yeah, but it's still writing. You've still got to sit down and do it.
Well, it was very fun. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't traumatic to write those. It was ridiculous. I mean, we would decide up front, she walks into a bar, who could she possibly have sex with? Oh, there's the woman she can have sex with in the bathroom when she goes to do her lipstick. There's the barman, there's the rock star, and there's the businessman. Right, off you go. You know, it's really not.
How did you people the bar? I mean, how did you know what characters to put in the bar?
Well, who do you want to have sex with? And then we just peopled it with people that you might want to have sex with, really. Okay. And people that you might find in a bar. I mean, you know, it's not. And then we did the same with blind date. You know, she goes on a blind date. Who do you want to go on a blind date with? The fireman. If you go with the fireman, do this, you know. So it's the same, the celebrity, you know, so the same, it's the same construct throughout.
Okay, but I mean, the useful thing in that kind of structure means that you're each doing separate things. You're not trying to write one third-person narration and match your styles. Yeah,
exactly. And it was very seamless. Like we all knew exactly what we wanted to write. You know, like I said, Sarah's a bit of a car junkie. She loves cars, so she wanted to write like the mechanic, the scene with the mechanic, and Helen knew she wanted to write the priest, the scene with the priest. And I knew I wanted to write the scene with the rock star. So we never argued about, because we're all so different, there were two things. We never argued about what we were going to write, each of us. And we never argued about our roles. Our roles were very predefined because of who we are. So Helen managed the editing. She obviously wrote so much, but she really managed the editing of it. And Sarah managed the managing of it. And I just wrote, and I held the main document. And I was the one who was kind of fitting everything in that everybody sent and kind of managing the form of it.
Yeah. Would you write with other people again?
I would write with Sarah and Helen again. I mean, I write with people every day in advertising. So yes, I don't see why not. It's it has to be the right project and the right people. I think that's really important. I think you cause yourself a lot of trauma if you go into a project with the wrong people. You have to have matching kind of work ethic. You know, those things are really super important.
Yeah. And after working together like that, you very intensely for a while, and then you went back to writing your own books. I mean, what did that feel like? Was it a just junction?
You know, Helen and Sarah are always such a big part of the books that I write, that it actually wasn't. You know, they're in on my plotting. Helen edits me. Sarah talks to me. So I never feel alone in the writing because they're there. I'm very lucky. I'm very fortunate to have them. And it works the other way around, you know. So lovely to be watch Helen writing Charlotte and know in the background what she's doing and that it's going to go huge. We just knew it was going to go big and international. So you get to be part of somebody else's interior writing life, and that's a gift, big time.
Okay, and you don't mind that, because normally writers are very self-contained and jealous of their space and so on. You don't mind collaborating?
We don't step on each other's toes. We all want different things, and we all write such different things. We don't write in the same genre. So I think there's none of that. And I think we also add to each other's writing so much. You know, to have people there, somebody there, I can just write to Helen and say, I wrote this column on something a little bit edgy. Please make sure that I'm not skewering myself and that Twitter's not going to like put a hit out on me. So you also get that kind of assistance. So no, I never feel that. But also, I mean, I've been in advertising so long, and advertising is complete collaboration. You never have your own say on anything. Everything you do gets disseminated and fiddled with by other people. So writing in comparison has none of that. I mean, by comparison, writing is like a very solitary thing.
Yeah.
Hello.
Just let's get to
no, Adrian, can I phone you back? I'm sorry, I'm on a Zoom meeting and I forgot to put my phone up.
Just a couple of the questions that have come in. Did Tim Noakes admit to buying Death by Carbs? Is he still talking to you, for that matter?
He was such a sweetheart. I suddenly realized when I finished writing the book that I hadn't asked for permission, and that he was like really rich and he probably had big lawyers. In fact, I knew he had big lawyers because there was that whole trial. And so I thought, flip, I've written this whole book that I'm going to publish, and he'll just take me to the cleaners. It's complete libel. So I phoned him. I got his phone number out of somebody, John Dobson, or I don't know, somebody. And I phoned him. I said, I was so nervous again. I said, hi, my name is Paige Nick. I've written a book about you, but I just want to check that it's okay with you if I publish it. So he said, oh, my dear, publish it with pleasure. You know, he's such a PR whore, he would love it. So I said, well, I kill you on the first page. You may want to read it before you give me your blessing. And then he waited and he said, yeah, you better bring it in. And then I went with my manuscript to the Sports Science Institute, and I was sitting in reception, and he came to get me from his office to walk me to his office. And as he walked, a lady with a trolley came. This was mid-banting crazy, to the kitchen. And the trolley was full of like cake, like leftover muffins. Somebody had been having a party, and cake, and pushing the trolley. And he was like, no, you know, this isn't from our office. This is from the office down the hall. And I said, well, I don't care. He was like, no, listen, this can't get come. And he said to the lady pushing the trolley, tell her it wasn't from our office. So the lady was like, no, it's not from his office, it's from down there. I was like, it's really fine. Like, I'm not that kind of journalist. I'm a columnist. I'm not that kind of journalist. And then he called me into his office. At first he made me wait, and then I gave him the manuscript and we chatted. And then he made me wait a really long time. And I remember seeing a picture of him. I was stalking him, fully stalking him on Twitter. And somebody posted a picture of standing next to him at Starling's in Claremont at the coffee shop. They'd seen him having his coffee and gone up and asked for a photograph. And he was holding my manuscript in the photograph. And I was like, yes, he's reading it. And then he phoned me and put me out of my misery. He said, it's fine, publish it. And then he did a lovely shout on the front cover, and he came and did the launch with me. He was incredibly generous about it, thank goodness.
Okay.
It was lovely.
Another question. Oh God, I meant to ask yesterday, this is from Melanie Walker, and don't think I did. What is this thing with writers always letting people know how many words they've written? Okay, you go first.
I don't know, I'm bad at numbers. So this is a bad question for me. I guess maybe it's pride, like we can't actually believe we've written that many numbers. It's like some kind of shock. I don't know. Yeah,
I suppose it's the only measurement there is in the day, actually, unless you count how many drinks you've had. Another one. You mentioned that you were used to getting feedback because of your advertising career, so the changes to your manuscript didn't bother you too much. What advice would you give budding writers when it comes to manuscript feedback?
Well, if it comes from somebody who's reputable, then you should listen. If it comes from somebody who's been doing it a lot longer than you, and you've given it to them for feedback, then, and you're also new at it, then you should listen. I had no idea what I was doing. I still don't really know what I'm doing, but particularly those first few novels, I really didn't know what I was doing. So I think you should, I think this is me. Not all authors feel this way. So there might be a lot of authors. I see Conita Loxton is here. I don't know how other authors, some authors won't actually let anybody touch their words. So they're different, and I mean literally they're not allowed to touch a single word. And I buy that. You know, a lot of literary authors spend so long with each sentence that I buy why they feel that way. But I'm not that kind of writer. I'm kind of a more, I don't know, loose and easy. I don't know. But and I also I believe that feedback is valuable. I hope that helps you and answers your question. But you can also email me if you have other questions. I'm always...
Then there's an interesting one from Kanita, who is about to publish another novel. And she says she remembers seeing a photograph of you sending Zoom or handing him a copy of Unprecedented. I'm curious if you ever had any reaction, and particularly if you've got any reaction in the last week.
No. So it's quite funny. I did send it to Zuma and no reaction ever. And then there was a picture of him in Parliament, and a friend of mine emailed me a comp. She took the picture and she comped in my book on his desk in Parliament on top of his papers. So it looked like he'd been reading my book in Parliament. She did a really good job. I put it out on social media. It actually looked really real, but it wasn't. But what did happen, and I'm such a chicken shit. I'm so embarrassed that I did this now. I also sent one to Julius Malema, because he gets a bit of a beating in the book as well. And then I chickened out the next day. And I thought, you crazy, what are you doing? Don't send it to that crazy guy. He'll put a hit on you. I don't know what I thought. And so I phoned the courier company and canceled it. Or they wouldn't let me cancel it. I had to reroute it. So I rerouted it to a friend in Joburg, because I decided last minute, because I was quite scared when I published that. I didn't know. I mean, I should have known nobody was going to read it, because nobody's going to read it. But I was quite scared at the time of publishing that we didn't quite know what the reaction was going to be, because we went also with the Brave, with the Zuma's face on the cover, which was probably illegal. But we did it, and no, sadly, nothing bad happened to me, because that would have been good for sales. I'll do anything for a sale.
Oh, that's a double-edged one there. Melanie also wants to know, what is the writing drink? So she wants to know probably if that's a gin or a vodka that you're drinking right now.
Right now it's a whiskey, but when I write, I can't write, what do they say, write drunk, edit sober, or is it edit sober, write drunk? Which one? I can't even remember which one it is. No, I can't write with booze or noise, unfortunately. Fiction.
Okay. So there's no music playing while you're writing? No,
I need it to be quiet, and I can't drink. I need to hear whatever's going on inside my head, which sounds totally crazy when I say it out loud.
No. Well, I mean, it is crazy, but then I take it that you are crazy, so that's fine. Melanie, what is mine? It's Malbec. If you're wanting to deliver a case, I'll give you the address later.
You drink while you're writing, Mike?
Sorry?
You can drink while you're writing?
God, no. Like you, no music, no noise, no. Water's about as far as it goes. Paige not only writes brilliant stories, she bakes well too. Lemon meringue.
I don't know that that's a question. Yes.
Well, yes.
Thank you, Deems. That was a long time ago. Oh, word.
So there we are. We know what goes into those things. Now, I came across doing some stalking of you. A love you seem to have for the books of Jim Crace, which is an interesting choice. about as far from your style as it's possible to get.
Right. I know. How strange. I don't read, I don't really read the genres that I write, although I'm writing more and more that way. So the spoofs have taken me more that way. Maybe Dutch Courage. Dutch Courage is definitely more what I would read than my first two novels. So I don't know what the psychology is behind that. Maybe I'm not accessing my true voice or what I should be writing, but I can only write what I write. I would dream of writing like Claire Robertson or like Jim Crace. I mean, it's incredible writing, but it's just not my, I can only write what I can write. Maybe it's a future project. I don't know. Yeah, I love Jim Crace. It's amazing.
What is it about his writing that particularly gets you? Because there's a certain quality to the sentences.
He's very lyrical. I met him once. I've met him a few times at literary festivals, and I've stalked him a bit anyway. The first time I met him, I was so like overwhelmed. It was at the Cheltenham Literary Festival, which I'd gone to just especially to see him. And I went to get my book signed, and I was like so excited. And then I said like something really embarrassing. I said, "Your books are so lyrical." Like, I don't know why I said it. I said something like I want to sing them in the shower or something. I don't know, it was like a ridiculous thing to say in this like awkward moment, but his writing is incredibly lyrical. And then he's also very mischievous. He really plays with the reader. And it's something I wish I could do. It's something I wish I could do more. He really like, he's incredibly mischievous and cheeky with the reader. He plays tricks on you and takes you down one way and down another way. So I just love reading him. It's incredible. He writes in other worlds as well. He doesn't write in our world.
Indeed. I've looked very closely at it, and it seems to me that he writes in iambic feet, so that the units of the sentence are all iambics.
Yes.
And if you just read the sentences aloud and don't pay any attention to the sense, this music starts to create.
Right, which is incredible. I'm not particularly musical, and I'm not particularly academic. So these wonderful things that you say are not things that I'm aware of. I'm just aware of that it's lyrical. And he's very into music. His latest, if I can remember what it's called, Melody, I think. Yes, I think it's called Melody. Is a few of them are about music, and he's very into that. So it's very telling. I don't really know how he does it. It's what he does to me is magic. Maybe that's what my fascination is. I can't figure out how he does that. Like I could write all day, every day for my entire life and never get a sentence out like that.
Yeah, no, it's unique, but thank God there are different writers all over the place. Kanita now wants to know, what is the favorite of your own books?
Well, Conita, which is your favorite child? You've got some sons going on there. I don't know. I've never read them back again. In fact, I remember being interviewed about Dutch Courage, which is my most recent novel, actually, and not remembering any of the characters. Conita says she'll message me privately about which is her favorite son. And somebody was interviewing me, and I couldn't remember the names of any of the characters. I don't go back and reread them afterwards, so I don't have a lot of memory of them. But they each are favorites for different reasons. I think Dutch Courage is, I don't know, maybe Dutch Courage, or maybe Death by Carbs. It's very hard to say. I don't know. Mike, do you have a favorite book of yours?
Good God, no. Once they're finished, they're finished. I don't want to own up to them after that.
Right. I kind of feel the same way. I try not to think too much about them afterwards.
Yeah. Any more questions? Because we're getting towards the end of the hour, and Paige needs to go and do some serious drinking, I guess. So do I, actually. Do we have any? Paige, is there anything in particular that we've left out that you would like to pay some attention to? Something that
Melanie asked you about short stories. Mel, it was a book of columns that came out must have been 2013, called Pens Behaving Badly. So it was actually Sunday Times columns, punctuated by the crazy letters that I got from readers about each column. I knew that if I wrote about certain subjects, I would get crazy, angry letters from readers. And then we published their angry letters. There was one guy, we've got 3 minutes, I'll tell you a funny story. he would write to me. I would write a column, say, about penis size. And then I would get an email on the Monday morning and say, the terrible column. You could be so ashamed of yourself. How can you write this filth? You should try harder. That was always his like tagline at the end. And he would say, there's so many people who would kill to have this job. You should honor it more. And then he said, next time I'm going to go straight past your column and straight to the crosswords, not reading you again. And then he would sign off. Then like a month would go by and I would write another column about something else, generally sex related. And he would write back and go, I was looking for the crossword and I came across your column and I read it and it was absolutely terrible. And how dare you? And I'm never going to read you again. It's the worst junk I've ever read. Signed his name. And then another month or two would go by and then I would get another letter. Oh, I read your column again. In the end, I wrote back and I said to him, don't read my column. Stop reading it. You hate it. It's not for you. Do not read this shit. Still wrote back.
It sounds as if you need to write a memoir next.
No, I don't think. No, memoir, not for me. I mean, I'm just reading actually this, which is well, not memoir, but I don't read that much nonfiction. I'm reading this nonfiction. I think nonfiction is a feat. Again, it's not something I can imagine writing, oddly. No, I'm not that interesting. I just write all the time. There's not much interesting in that.
Okay. Paige, thank you. It's been wonderful listening to you. It really has. Thank you very much for agreeing to the hour.
I'm so grateful. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for keeping me relevant.
Just remember, this was actually to prod you into the next book.
Yeah, maybe I must come do your course and you'll get me going again.
Yeah, there's a class. Carnita's on the class and I'm sort of slightly prodding her to get the next book going as well, but without too much
One needs
success.
to prod Carnita. She seems to just birth them regularly.
Yeah. Anyway, talk to her. Thank you, everybody. Next time up is John Connolly. So that'll be later in August and I will advertise it well in advance. Paige, thank you again.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.